Is African safari at the top of your bucket list, but have no idea where to begin planning? Today, you'll learn why a trip to Kenya is not just a chance to encounter wild animals, it's an opportunity to see the world and yourself through a completely new perspective. In today's episode, Skyler Mason of SkyIn is on the pod discussing with us how to plan your ultimate African safari in Kenya, why a safari is about more than animals, it's truly a journey within, and how to get the most out of your experience while supporting local communities and wildlife. Skyler Mason is the founder of SkyIn, a travel company curating authentic and immersive experiences throughout Kenya. You're going to hear Skyler's surprising and inspiring story of living in Kenya after growing up in the United States and how this shaped the trajectory of his life, his business, and his impact and legacy. For Skyler, Kenya is more than just a destination. It's a place woven into the fabric of his life through years of exploration. His intimate familiarity ignited a vision to offer travelers an unparalleled experience beyond the beaten path, a chance to immerse themselves in the local culture and embrace the warmth of Kenyan life, truly living like a local, all while creating a sustainable presence that would generate continuous employment opportunities, cultivating long-term growth, and empowering local communities throughout Kenya. Whether you're looking to travel to Kenya this year, or perhaps that's a long away someday experience for you, I promise this is an episode you truly don't want to miss. Hey there, welcome to the Transform with Travel podcast. I have Skyler Mason here of SkyIn. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited for my community to learn more about safari. We are in the age of bucket list travel right now, and everyone is just trying to get out there and tick off amazing things on their bucket list, and safari is definitely number one. And you're going to talk a lot today about why safari, of course, is an amazing part of the process, but there's so much more to discover on the continent of Africa and Kenya in particular. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us today and share your story.
Thank you so much, Kelly, for having me.
I'd love for you to take us back to the beginning. Like, what is your connection to Kenya? Why are you so passionate about bringing people to discover this country?
Absolutely. So I'm extremely passionate about bringing people to Kenya, and obviously revolved my entire career around doing it is because of my life experiences, having grown up exploring Kenya since I was a very young boy. Now, again, the common question is, you say you grew up there. What brought you even to Kenya in the first place? And that's a great question, because it's a story that many people, I've never met a single other person that can relate. Ever since I was 2 years old, Kelly, and to this day, my parents still have no idea where this came from because they have never been to Africa at the time. My parents were not big world travelers. They weren't like missionaries. My connection, my fascination, my passion since my parents said since I was 2 years old was all about Africa. I still have family friends that come over to this day that are my parents' age that tell me that when I was a young boy, I used to run around the house, drumming, dancing, singing, dreaming I was a part of this tribe. And my dream since I was a toddler was to immerse myself into African culture. To this day, we kind of have a firm belief that my past life probably had been somewhere in Africa due to my huge amount of connection and passion for the country or for the continent, for the people. And I've been very fortunate. When I was 13 years old, my father owned a smoked salmon manufacturer here in the States. He has a big factory based here in Denver, Colorado. We service nationwide, but we were one time at a trade show, and there was an individual that walked by who happened to be darker skin. He happened to be in African attire. And it's so funny because my dad's that individual that he believes that, especially when you're at a trade show, we all know that like any person that walks by can open many doors for you. You know, It just takes that one opportunity to really have things arise and uplift for you. And so my dad was a little bit more strict. He was very strict about us taking breaks and very strict about us, making sure that we are focused, we're drilled in. I mean, this is a great opportunity for us to be able to obviously expose our family business. And when this individual walked by, my father looked at me and he said, "Skyler, go talk to him." He said, so I get very emotional. He said he knew how much I have the passion for Africa. He knew how much it meant to me. And for my father to be that strict when it comes to us working, he literally looked at me in the eyes and said, "Skyler, go talk to him." And that individual gave me time and day. And I sat there and talked to him for an hour at the trade show and just got to learn about him, where he came from, what he did, learn about his life. Long story short is we actually exchanged numbers. Well, I used to call him up every single week, just literally picking his brain, wanting to know all about him, his culture, his life, his family back home, his country. And then he approached my parents about 6 months later. And he said, "I'm going back home to Kenya. I would love the opportunity to be able to have Skyler come stay with me and my family back home in Kenya for an entire summer. And I really believe this is something that's going to transform him. This is something that clearly he needs and wants. And really what's kind of spectacular is my parents, without a single hesitation, believed in this guy. I mean, it's not like they were super close to him and, we're all close and family friends. And, my parents just knew of him because of my relationship I started building with him. And my parents knew that this was the right thing for me to do. So they let me go with him and his family back home to Kenya. And I spent an entire summer immersing myself across the magical land of the region. As we all know, going to a world so different than our own, like Kenya, it's so different. I mean, not necessarily in good or bad, just the way of life, obviously the infrastructure, what the people look like, everything is so different than where we come from here in the Western world in the United States. But I was able to stay with local families, immerse myself in the local communities, travel across the country with the local guidance by my side every step of the way. That first time I touched down in Kenya completely transformed my life. I like to say I was a kid in a candy shop. I was where I needed to be. I felt like this is my calling. This is where I was. And it completely transformed me. And ever since that, I used to travel back and forth back to Kenya every year during my off season of school, building such extensive relationships across the country. There's one particular lady I refer to as Mama Joy. Mama Joy is my Kenyan mother. She's my second mother to this day. She's everything to me. She is that first person that brought me into her home and completely immersed me into her culture, into her family, into her communities, into the remote indigenous tribes. Without her, there would be no SkyIn. There would be no my mission and my dream and my vision of what I'm trying to do and provide travelers in this world, of being able to connect them to Kenya in such a unique, authentic way. And long story short, so after building all these deep connections down there, I actually graduated from San Diego State University. I studied in the Fowler Business School of Marketing and Management. I grew up in a big family-owned business. I went to school for business. Business is kind of in my blood. And I did what most people do after they graduated college when they grew up in a family business. Is I got into the family business. I ran it for 5.5 years. I was a factory worker for the first 2 years. My father was like, I don't care the degree you have. I don't care whose son you are. You got to earn your way up. I knew I was ready for the task. And so for the first 2 years as a factory worker, and then I worked my way up all the way to executive sales and marketing director. Well, the time finally came. My father was kind of ready to step down. He was ready to make some big decisions. What's the future of our family business going to look like? And I was the next one to kind of take over and run the company. Well, I had dinner with my father, and he sat me down and he said, Skyler, I'm ready to retire. Is this something you want to do? Is this something you're ready to do? Is this something that you're passionate about? That, he wants to make sure that this was something I was driven to be able to do. And without a single hesitation, Kelly, I said no. I said, one thing you've always taught me is, sorry, I get emotional, is to not follow anybody else's footsteps, but to create my own. And there's many things I loved about my family business, but one thing I truly admired the most was my father created so many jobs at the factory for immigrants, for people that didn't have chances, even second chances, people that lacked the opportunities, and he gave them an opportunity. He gave them chances. He provided resources. He created so many jobs, because you give one person a job, it impacts the community, it impacts their family. He's able to feed their kids and stuff. And that really resonated with me deeply. And I could tell how much that fulfilled his life. And I've always dreamed about doing something like that back home in Kenya. My genesis, my story of growing up out there and exploring Kenya since I was a very young boy, as I mentioned, transformed me. And I knew I wanted to be able to give back. These communities are everything to me. We all know in that part of the world, jobs are so scarce. Opportunities, resources are so scarce compared to what we're used to here in the States. And so when I stepped down from the family-owned business, I knew I needed to do something that was in the direction of what my calling was. And I happened to believe that there had to be a reason why I was so connected to Africa in the first place, why I fell in love with Kenya. And I knew I wanted to change and create a career around my passion, if that makes sense. I did what a lot of people thought I was crazy to do in the beginning. Was I stepped down from a big family-owned corporation. I went back to Kenya on a soul-searching adventure 3 months later to figure out, what do I do? Do I build something? Do I manufacture something? Do I resource something? I have one mission. That mission is to create as many jobs, opportunities, and resources for these local communities that I possibly can. And while I was there, it's an incredible story because one thing I love about my Kenyan mother is that she is so big about the community. She's so well known. She's just all about giving back. And she actually owns a very small school in her backyard for impoverished children, for children that don't really have the funds to be able to go to school. Because that's the difference between out there compared to here. Here, there's public education. Out there, there's not. So if your family does not have the funds to send the kids to school, well, then that's taken away from their education. And then any future opportunities are so limited because of the lack of education. So one morning, and this is literally how it happened, how it came all about to me. I was laying in bed. And every morning during the week, I'm either woken up by the chickens in the chicken hen or the kids running into the classroom, all fun and games and all happy. And I woke up and I remember I could hear the kids running into the classroom, all excited and happy. I mean, they're there to learn. They're there to be with their friends. And I woke up and I said to myself, I was laying in bed. I said, why do I care so much? Why am I willing to leave a big family-owned business in the United States that's pretty well off to come out here and figure out something I don't even know what that's going to look like? And then it hit me. It hit me that I cared so much because of the experiences and the way I've been able to explore Kenya. Less like a tourist, more like a local, more like a traveler, really immerse myself in connecting and learning. And from that point on, I said, you know what? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to duplicate the same immersive, authentic, transformative experiences I had growing up to other travelers worldwide that want to experience Kenya more than what a typical tourist can, if that makes sense. Because to me, Kenya is not just a destination to visit. It's a place to experience, to learn, to discover, and most importantly, to connect. And when you can connect with the wildlife, with the culture, with the people, it transforms you in different ways. Everybody has their own different aha moments, but it really gives you a whole new outlook on life. And I started doing a lot of market research. Okay, what are companies offering when it comes to tourism to Kenya? And everybody offers safaris by all means, but what about the true authentic experiences? So I started looking into like more of the cultural experiences. And I said, these are cool, but they're very commercialized. They're 1 hour demonstrations, like especially like, let's talk about the Maasai. The Maasai is a tribe, very indigenous tribe, one of the most well-recognizable tribes in all of the continent of Africa. They reside on Eastern Africa in Kenya and Tanzania. I've been very blessed and fortunate that I am very, very close to a Maasai community that I call family. They call me part of their village. You know, I do everything to be able to be a part of that community. And looking at what other companies are offering, they offer this 1 hour demonstration where you sit on a bench and you watch performers perform. You know, it's more of an act, it's more of a demonstration, it's very commercialized, and it doesn't really support the communities. I said, wow, I've been able to have this experience growing up, and I'm a part of this community. And from that point on, I said, you know what? That's what I want to do. I want to offer a more authentic way that people can connect, a more immersive, transformative, yet sustainable way that people can really immerse themselves into this tribe and learn about their daily lives, learn about their culture, their heritage, their rituals. And it really does, because it impacted me so much and transformed me, as you can imagine. Going into an indigenous village, we don't have that here in the States. I know there's still some Native Americans, residing in certain areas, but we all know that in the United States is more the Western world, right? Mm-hmm. But when you can go to a very indigenous tribe that they live in huts, they don't have running water, they don't have electricity, it completely transforms how you appreciate things, how you accept things and honor things. And that point on, I said, you know what? I want to offer those enriching experiences to other travelers. And don't get me wrong, SkyIn's about not just all authenticity, saying you come to Kenya, you go into a tribe and then you leave. It's about pairing what most people come to Kenya for, of course, a luxury safari, but pairing it with those immersive cultural experiences that allows them to get such a more in-depth exploration of what Kenya really has to offer. And so that's the genesis of SkyIn. It's, again, everything is based off my life experiences growing up out there. And I'm very fortunate that I completely turned my passion into my entire career, both ways, of course. But now I get to share these experiences with other travelers worldwide.
My brain is spinning because there's just so much that you touched on. But the main thing that's coming to me right now is there was a reason why I felt so connected to you on our first call, is because we have very similar outlooks on the travel industry and like what travel can be for people, not necessarily what it is in its current form, but what it can be. And you said the words authentic, immersive, transformative. Like those are all words that I use to describe the experiences that I create for my clients. And I was like, this is why I felt so compelled to have you out of all of the safari operators that are out there, which are many. I was like,
There are many.
there are many, but not everyone's doing it the way that you're doing it. So I really appreciate it. And I really loved when at the very beginning of the story, when you had gone for the first time, and you said it was different. It wasn't right or wrong. It was just different. And I feel like if more travelers can go into their traveling experiences with more of that open mind of this is just different, it's not right or wrong. We definitely don't have things going all the right ways here in this country. And I
100%.
think having that lens of it and having someone like yourself and your team kind of coaching people through that process as they travel of, hey, you might see this and this is why they do it that way, instead of going into it with this mentality that we know how everything's supposed to be, and just learning so much from the culture. I really loved your perspective of like, okay, people want the luxury safari. They don't quite know that they also need this connection to the culture. And until they are given that opportunity to have that experience, they wouldn't be able to even know what they're missing until that part of it. And you're so true. These hour-long, I think of like Hawaii, the luau, or these, performances in certain areas of the world where it's just that it's a performance. It's not actually time to connect. Like I think the North Island of New Zealand does this really well with their connection to the Maori culture. And people like yourself are doing this really well with different tribes across, the region of Africa that you cover. I just really appreciate it. And I love your story. Obviously you have so much passion for it. As you mentioned, your itineraries do go well beyond just the safari, and you go into culture and community and really deep life-changing connection. Could you walk us through like a sample adventure of how you would take someone on this journey through Kenya? If in your ideal world with, budget not an option, like how would like somebody walk through this process of going on their dream trip with you guys?
Absolutely. So to me, I get this question quite often, and people say, well, why choose Kenya over other countries in Africa, right? And one of the biggest answers I'm able to, or one of the best way to be able to describe that is that Kenya offers so much that is all tied into one country. And what I mean by that is that Kenya has, of course, the wildlife, some of the national reserve, like Maasai Mara National Reserve. We have Amboseli over there with Mount Kilimanjaro and that painting over there. Those are some of the most highlighted destinations in the entire continent of Africa to be able to go on safari. But to me, also, aside from the wildlife, Kenya also has very well-known wildlife conservation sanctuaries that are very, very world famous in regards of the conservation that they're providing in Kenya. Also, the indigenous culture still remains in Kenya. A lot of southern African countries, the indigenous cultures have become a lot more modernized. So Kenya still has its remaining indigenous culture. Also the beaches. People don't realize how amazing the beaches are in Kenya along the Indian Ocean, white sand, crystal blue water, turquoise waters. And so to me, Kenya, when you go on an excursion, on a journey, it's not just about going to one experience, going to, arriving into Nairobi, driving up to the national parks, go on safari, come back to Nairobi, and then out. It's about giving people such a variety of different experiences while they're in Kenya. To me, how we like to design our itineraries, and we customize all our itineraries to meet the exact needs, wishes, desires of our partners, which are agents and operators, and their clients. But to me, what Kenya all has to offer is we want to be able to provide them such an authentic blend of culture, wildlife, and beaches. And to me, by going to Nairobi has two well-known conservation sanctuaries, such as the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust, which is a baby elephant orphanage, as well as the Giraffe Center. These offer the opportunity for travelers to be able to come to these wildlife sanctuaries during the visiting hours, to be able to learn about the conservation and the stories of how these animals were rescued, how they are there to be rehabilitated and then one day reintroduced back into the wild. But then it also affords travelers the opportunity to get hands-on with the animals as well, to feed the giraffes, to pet the elephants. Again, it gives you that connection and that warmth that everybody loves when it comes to getting up close to in these incredible encounters with, of course, these exotic animals. Now, the next thing is the wildlife. Of course, going into the different national parks, different reserves all across Kenya. So a fun fact is Kenya has the most amount of national parks out of any country in Africa. When you go to different national parks or reserves, as you can imagine, every single one has different landscapes, different scenery, but most importantly, different type of wildlife. Some might be the expansive open savannas. Some might be more jungle, swampy feeling. Some might have the beautiful backdrop of the freestanding snow-capped mountain of Mount Kilimanjaro. So being able to go take you to all these variety of different national parks, again, gives you such a different experience. Sometimes people are like, oh, I don't want too much safari, or I don't want to just see the same type of animals. But again, when you go to different national parks, it's different type of terrain, which of course inhabits different type of animals. And then to me, it's also then going to the beaches. The Kenya's coastline is absolutely breathtaking. We also offer some incredible experiences along the coast. We do our own authentic sailed excursions on these traditional dhow boats. So the dhow boats were actually used back in the 1800s to transfer the slaves from the mainland over to Zanzibar for market trade. Well, thank God that slavery is no longer in existence, but now they use the dhow boats for these really cool, authentic excursions where you go on the dhow boats, you go out to Wasini Island, hopefully you spot the dolphins along the way, you do snorkeling, scuba diving excursions, where some of the most breathtaking coral reefs, marine life, sea turtles, dolphins all live within those areas. And then we also offer historical slave trade tours as well to Fort Jesus, the Shimoni slave cave. So really talk about and share the heritage of some of the most touching past life of how things were back with the slavery, and then the immersive cultural experiences. With SkyIn, we offer two different tribes. One is called the Maasai tribe. The Maasai is they live in the open savannas. They're referred to as the herding tribe. Again, one of the most recognizable tribes. A lot of people recognize them as the tribe that likes to jump up and down, the men, all that. And then we also do with the Mijikenda tribe. Is another connection I had growing up. Now, the Mijikenda is very different from the Maasai. The Mijikenda live in a very sacred forest, and they're referred to as the tree people. They're all about natural herbs and remedies, holistic lifestyle, and fortune telling. And again, because of my upbringing with these tribes, two separate tribes, I sat down with the chiefs to be able to put together these authentic, transformative excursions that brings travelers into these communities and creates such a full day experience, a completely private, completely intimate, and literally having travelers live a day in a life of what the villagers live like. They're going to be dressed like villagers. They're going to eat authentic village lunch with the villagers. They're going to meet and engage with the chief. They're going to storytell with the tribal elders, learn all the daily tasks and roles, the women and the warriors, all from the roots of it all. Another thing is that makes this really unique is that when you come into Nairobi, Nairobi is the capital city of Kenya. We all know that you have to fly into Nairobi and you have to fly out. Now, there's two ways that we can host you while you're in Nairobi. One is, of course, a beautiful boutique hotel. But two, for those purely authentic travelers that are looking for a real intimate cultural encounter, we also specialize in highly vetted Nairobi suburban homestays. Wow. So for those travelers who really want to connect with the local family, learn about their daily life, get in the kitchen and cook with the mothers, learn about their family rituals, we offer the opportunity where travelers can come and stay with a local family. All our families are highly vetted in. They speak fluent English. They go through high amounts of internal comprehensive training, and they're also background and screened through the government as well, in a suburban homestay. So I highlight suburban because a lot of people's assumption is, oh, I'm going to go stay in a homestay. I'm going to go stay in a hut and sleep on the ground. That's not safe. That's not comfortable. No, you'll be visiting indigenous communities that live in huts, but in Nairobi, it has the same type of city life that we're all used to here in the States as well. And so our suburban homestays, they offer private, comfortable bedrooms, bathrooms, hot water showers, electricity, Wi-Fi, and very safe, secure, to monitor neighborhoods. So when you say, Skyler, what is kind of your idea journey that you would like to take guests on, it's really pairing where one day you're at a baby elephant orphanage. The next day you're immersing yourself into a Maasai village. The following day you're on the coast on an authentic sailing excursion, seeing dolphins and snorkeling the pristine coral reefs of the Indian Ocean. The following day you're in another indigenous tribe, immersing yourself with the Mijikenda tree people. And then following that, you're on an exotic safari, seeing animals from such different perspectives of views, whether it's on game drives, horseback riding safari, night game drives, or even from the up top point of view of a bird on a hot air balloon safari. So, giving everybody...
sign me up. I'm ready. Sign me up.
And that's what's really cool about our, again, I'll be the first person, we don't sell trips, we don't sell vacations, we specialize in immersive journeys. And we want to offer travelers more than what the common tourist is able to experience and go on a beautiful safari, but make sure while you're still out there, go to other parts of Kenya that really do make up with what makes the country so spectacular as well.
Yeah, I remember my husband and I spent a month in Sri Lanka, and we did a homestay just outside of one of their national parks, Utawalawai, which is known for having a lot of the elephants. And we did a homestay there. And again, granted it was 2 twin beds, so we weren't sleeping together, but we had our own twin beds, which after a year of traveling, we were like, we're good with the separate beds. It's all good. But we sat down and had a traditional Sri Lankan, just regular old Tuesday night breakfast, with the family. And we sat down and we talked with them about their life, and they talked about us. They were curious about us. us. And that night, a herd of elephants actually stampeded through their fence. And we got to see like what they have to deal with on like a day-to-day basis, is that they're also dealing with how do we handle the elephants. And it's one of those experiences that, yeah, it was probably not even a 2-star classification experience, but I will remember that for the rest of my life. And I think it's about redefining what that luxury is to travelers. And you are definitely doing all the right things about making sure it's clear what type of experience this is. I'm curious. I know you mentioned, the homestays, they go through a lot of serious vetting and it's very comfortable bed. And then you also have access to a lot of these boutique, very culturally enriched hotel experiences. But when you mention things like living like a local, and it's such a key part, or traveling like a local, key part of, your philosophy as a company, how do you balance that with the comfort that a lot of these more luxury style travelers are expecting on these types of journeys? Because safari in and of itself is not your run-of-the-mill budget vacation. You do have to have quite a bit of budget to be able to make something come this to life. So you are dealing with travelers that do have that level of budget to be working with this experience, which does sometimes come with an expectation of a style of travel. How do you balance that of giving that really local, authentic, immersive experience, but also maintaining the comfort that some of these travelers might be expecting?
Great way to answer that is by getting personal with our clients. It's by getting to really know them on a very deep level, knowing what their comfort levels are, knowing and setting expectations. When you set expectations, then it allows for them to make the decision on what's best for them, of course. But I see a lot of companies that they say, send them their cookie cutter type of itineraries and say, hey, let us know what you think. We're the opposite. I strive my team, myself, to be extremely personal with all our agents and their clients to make sure that we can curate the perfect itinerary that meets, again, their budget, wishes, desires, their comfort levels. And so by us getting on a personal level with each and every client to know what they're looking for, to know what their comfort levels are, then we can then piecemeal it. For example, we had a really high-end luxury couple that traveled with us at the end of last year. We're talking about like the high of the high. We chartered flights everywhere they went, so private jets. They stayed at Giraffe Manor. They stayed at Umani Springs, which is part of the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust properties. They did their own private hot air balloon safari. So long story short, this couple was high end. But when we spoke to them, they still wanted, especially the wife, wanted this authentic one-day experience where they're going to be able to really immerse themselves in the culture. So knowing that their comfort level of staying in a homestay, not going to happen with this couple, but knowing that they're still open-minded to be able to go and just have a full private excursion into our Maasai village. And at the end of their journey, I had a debrief. The wife was actually fortunate enough to sit with me and go over her excursion. And one of the highlights out of all the experiences they did was the Maasai village, because she said that was her aha moment. That was an experience. They've been all over the world. I mean, these people are very, very high end. They have private jets and charters everywhere they go. And for them to be able to go into this indigenous village that's so different than any other experience they've been able to have, that to them was that moment that was a transformative experience, quote unquote, what they had mentioned to me. So the best way, again, to be able to gauge on someone's comfort level is to take the time to get on a personal level with them. Jump on a Zoom call, hear about who they are, what they like to do, because going to Africa is a lot different than going to Europe. I've been to Europe where I literally show up and I don't even know where I'm going to stay that night. You can literally just walk down the street and go to a local cafe in the morning. You can pretty much piecemeal everything together yourself. Well, going to a country in Africa is a lot different. Safety and security is top of mind, comfort level is top of mind. And a lot of people don't know what there is to do or what there is to offer. And so they come to us as the specialist. By us being able to, again, sit down, really take the time to get to know all our travelers on a personal level, we are then able to gauge on what we feel is the best approach. And by setting expectations, I think that's the best way to be able to do it. We also are big about creating marketing videos that really highlights every part of the experiences, so people can really see that kind of inside vision of what that experience will look like before they commit to it. And at the end of the day, if we could set expectations, we can show that the clients that we're here to cater towards them, and we're here to also, in a way, push them out of their comfort zone. That's how we're able to gauge on what's going to be a good experience for them or not.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was like, it's like a gentle encouragement to step outside the comfort zone, and they know that they're with the safety of a company that knows all of the people really well and has all the connections. I think that lets people feel like they can push their boundaries a little bit more because there's a little bit of that safety net underneath them. I really love that you mentioned that, I hate using like Africa as a whole because there's many, many countries within there, but like you're right. It is a destination, a safari experience, I guess, is not something that you can just show up and wing it. There are many destinations around the world that you can do that in, like New Zealand included, and parts of Europe and parts of Central America. You can really just show up and find a guest house and then figure it out from there. There are other destinations around the world that I think of, particularly more of these bucket list experiences like a safari or like a Machu Picchu or parts of India, where you do want to have a very highly specialized and highly localized company that you're working with, highly vetted, regulated, all of that. And I think that's something really to point on, is it's not a destination or an experience that you want to leave to chance. You want to make sure you're going to get the most return on experience for your investment, for your time, for your finances. And what I really love is that SkyIn goes really beyond tourism. Yes, you're providing these amazing experiences for travelers around the world, which I really love because, like you said, when you give one person a job, you feed a family, but also when you give one person an eye-opening aha moment, as you say, that then trickles down to how they interact with other people in their community who might be from those areas, or other people in their community that they speak to about how incredible of a destination, how incredible of a culture. And that changes perspectives all around the world. So I think the ripple effect is huge. From a local perspective, can you share a little bit about how your model of tourism supports those local communities and really creates more long-term sustainable employment? And also, I know you guys are working on a water well project. So I would love to hear more about how your business, just like your dad created a ripple effect across the country here and in your community in Colorado, but how is SkyIn doing that from a sustainability perspective as well?
Absolutely. And sustainability, as I mentioned, and that's why I always start with my story, because that's that's another thing I wanted to just highlight in our last conversation, is that the ability to be able to convey someone that to show them that this is truly an authentic experience, that's truly sustainable, that's truly non-exploiting, is by telling my story. I remember when I first started off my company, I always got this common question of like, when we were doing like ads and stuff, like, is the owner Black? Is he African? How do we know that these experiences are doing good and not harm for the community? How do we know it's taken away from the culture? And by me being able to tell my story really shows people that I'm out there to be able to make a difference. By my genesis, by me growing up with these villages, in these communities, being a part of them, shows what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to accomplish. Now, when it comes to sustainability, that is the core of SkyIn. As I mentioned in my story, that was the number one mission of why I created SkyIn, is to support these local communities. Now in Kenya, as I mentioned, jobs are very scarce. Well, who gets the jobs? People that are fortunate to grow up with education. Well, people that grow up with education is because their families can afford taking them to school and getting that proper education. Well, what about the communities that don't have that education factor? All those opportunities, all those jobs plummeted. Now, here at SkyIn, we go into these communities and we are creating jobs in marketplace for these villagers to empower them, to support them, to have them achieve and set goals, and also to, again, create that as a sustainable presence. For example, when it comes to our Maasai village, when travelers come in, we are creating so many jobs for the local villagers to be able to welcome these guests into their community and to be able to support them with, again, ongoing jobs, open up an open market where all these authentic crafts that the women are making are now being able to display it at a market. And I'm not talking about a marketplace that's like in Nairobi that's so accessible to be able to go there, 20 minutes outside the city and be able to go. I mean, we're going to a deep remote village. So without us bringing tourism into these communities, there is no market there. There is no jobs, you know what I'm saying? So by us being able to, again, support the local communities from our cooks to our representatives, to the weaving, to the beadwork, to all the different type of infrastructure that we're putting in place, we're able to create jobs for, again, communities that do not have that educational aspect that are able to back them up and get these future jobs. Now, when it comes to the water well, with the Maasai, water is the biggest issue that the Maasai face. In that part of the world, water does not exist. Any type of water that is there, when I say doesn't exist, plumbing, that type of infrastructure does not exist. And so what's left for these people to drink is muddy, gross, contaminated water from a watering pond, if that makes sense. Now, people sometimes assume that, okay, when you are able to, when people are going to the pond and drinking the water, they always assume that it's just, the downfall of that is it's just contaminated. Yes, that is a major, major issue. There's a lot of diseases that come from that, as we can imagine. But they don't realize what that's taken away by every single day having to go and fetch water. Mm-hmm. Women and children are usually the ones responsible to fetch the water. Well, as you can imagine, if they're walking miles a day, and we're not talking about having a motorcycle or having a vehicle to transport you, walking miles a day to be able just to fetch water, carry it back. Firstly, the strain of the long distance walking. Secondly, the hazard of going into, I mean, these are areas where there are predators, there are wildlife. So young kids, have to always watch about where they're going and what they're doing, because again, they are essentially putting themselves out there for exposure. And then three, you can imagine the constraint of having to carry the water. They put these straps on their head and they carry it on their back. The constraint of a young woman and children carrying these heavy gallons of water back to the village in this extreme heat and terrain, it puts a lot of wear and tear on your body. Now, as also, that time that they are spent going to fetch water every single day is time taken away from education, is time taken away from other type of opportunities that could potentially bring them more income and be able to grow them in that type of sense. So the water does play a huge factor on crippling these people out there, and it doesn't allow them, by being able to not have this resource for them, it takes them away from any other opportunities to help them grow and achieve in other things, if that makes sense. So one of the things that I have a huge passion for and a mission for is to create water wells all across Kenya. We have founded our Water Well Foundation. We've been very fortunate and have partnered with a very well creditable nonprofit 501c3 called World Serve International. They are literally they've been around for 25 plus years. Our headquarters is actually about an hour away from our village, it happens to be. And we partner with them to help achieve our goal in providing and bringing in the infrastructure as well as the construction of water wells, firstly in our villages that we currently serve. And then once we're able to raise and be able to implement that water well there, we're not going to be stopping, because I know that what it takes. And it's just crazy because here in the States, I mean, we literally turn on our faucet and we can drink the water. I live here in Denver, Colorado, and that's some of the most cleanest, purest, tastiest water that you can possibly have. And I turn on the faucet, I can literally stick my hand under, drink it, I'll be safe, I won't be sick, and it's just easily accessible to me. So by being able to go and again, immerse yourself into these villages and see, again, what their culture is about, but also see some of the constraints on the daily issues that they're having, it really does open people's eyes on, again, knowing that water, the most simplest thing, somewhere where we can literally walk down to the street to a local bar or a Starbucks and get a free cup of water without even any hesitation. These people are struggling each and every day just to have one simple glass of water that's contaminated, that literally can get them so sick, but that constraint of having them to go back and forth. So at a long said and done picture is that what SkyIn does is that we are creating job opportunities, we're empowering communities, and we're also providing well-needed resources that are going to help implement them and help them grow themselves. Again, also providing them the clean, safe water, but allowing them to free up time so now they can use their crafts and use their other ways of methods to be able to bring income into the community.
Yeah. I mean, overall, it's just empowering, and that changes the trajectory of generations. Like, as you were talking about the little kid who has to watch over their back for the predator, sometimes we talk a lot about in nervous system regulation here in the West, our nervous systems are designed so that, back in the day when a tiger was coming for us, and oftentimes we say, but there's no tiger anymore. It's actually in some communities, there is still the predator that's out to get you. And how can we keep these children safe so that they're not harboring, not just lack of water, which is first and foremost biological, 101, but also not having to be living in fear, walking miles every single day to have to just get the most basic necessity, and to be able to empower these communities like that with what you do, but also invite tourists and travelers along for the ride is how all of this change happens. I think there was a research that was just put out a couple of months ago by booking.com about sustainable travel, and 61% of luxury travelers are looking for providers that are providing this more sustainable model, not just sustainability from an eco impact, but also sustainability from how is this actually generating positive impact in communities around the world based on what the community needs. And I think that's how tourism and local community needs to go hand in hand, and that it is hopefully the future with more and more providers like yourself out there. Now, we spoke a lot about SkyIn and its philosophy and the impact that you're creating. Someone listening to this podcast is definitely interested in their bucket list trip to their safari. So if somebody were planning their first safari experience in Africa, what should travelers look for in their safari and tour operators when they're choosing what company to travel with? Like, how do they choose, or what should they be looking for? Is there a certification? Is there a type of adjective on their website? Like, what is it that you think people should be looking for when they're starting to select what providers to trust and choose to travel with?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a great question, and question we commonly get all the time. It's about doing your due diligence, because at the end of the day, we all know going to Africa on a safari is a bucket list dream. And like you said before, the worst thing ever is to finally live your dream to go to Kenya or go to anywhere in Africa, and that dream of yours goes to shame. It's time, it's an investment. As we all know, going on a safari is not the cheapest type of experience you can do out there in the world. It's one of the most expensive, but it's also your life in someone else's hands, because we are taking care from start to finish, all your arrangements, logistics, operations. When you guys look into certain providers, multiple things. Firstly, read the reviews. I think that's very, very crucial and very important to know what other people have to say about the provider. I always say the provider's there not just for the foreseen, but most importantly, the unforeseen. We all know when it comes to travel, things can arise. Someone can get ill, someone can fall, somebody could leave their passport in the safe. That happened to us a week ago. Somebody left their passport in a safe at a property. They were now 5 hours away to the next destination, realizing, oh my gosh, I left my money in the safe, I left my passport, and they left a watch, and they were flipping out. So by them being able to have a provider, us, by their side, we were able to get that things picked up, handled directly to them without missing a beat. I do think it's important when you guys look at providers is also knowing their relationship in the destination. Providers should be the specialists inside and out of the country that you are visiting. So making sure, again, looking at the credibility, looking at the reviews, but knowing what kind of infrastructure they have in the destination. When I built SkyIn, I knew that I had to, I'm a businessman, this is my business side of things, I had to figure out the barriers to entry of why agents and clients would not want to book with us. Firstly, one is that making sure that we have that on-the-ground team in the destination. We don't outsource it. Our vehicles, our guides, our drivers, our representatives, our team all belong to SkyIn. By not being able to be that middleman and being able to be that direct contact in the destination, that means we have control of what is happening in the destination at that time. A lot of other people look at going with some operators, but they don't realize there's so many middlemen along the way. And then if something does arise, it's just to even get communication on back and forth, it takes, as you can imagine, all these people in place. So looking at, again, the company that's in the destination, knowing about how, good of a team they have for the foreseen, again, for the most importantly, the unforeseen. Also looking at a few other things that really do help with people is that when I made sure that I built SkyIn, I built an office here in the States as well. And the reason for that is that firstly, when people are wanting to communicate, they're wanting to inquire, they're wanting to get more information, sometimes it's a strain when you work directly with a provider in the destination that you're trying to visit, because you have such a big time difference. Yeah. And then that person you're talking to may not speak the easiest English, or they might have, it's hard to understand them. So by being able to have direct communication in your own time zone, especially because most of our clientele is America, having our team in the States to help with planning, coordinating, most importantly, accounting. That's another thing as well. A lot of people do not like to send money overseas to a foreign destination in a whole type of different currency. So I made sure I built my team and office here in the States as well to handle all accounting. So everything is in US terms, everything is in US dollars, everything is handled within the United States. So when you guys look at a provider, just make sure, again, you do your due diligence, because at the end of the day, this provider is the one's going to take care of from start to finish. They're going to make sure that your investment is going towards the ultimate bucket list dream trip that you've always imagined, but it's also your life in their hands. Yeah. And a good provider will make sure that they're all the way with you. But also, I think the number one thing I love to pride myself on is, again, being personal with our clients. I think it's very important when anytime someone reaches out with an inquiry, we like to jump on a Zoom call with them. Or a phone call with them. We like to get to know exactly what they're looking for, because it shows that we care. It shows that we're willing to not just provide you a cookie cutter type of itinerary that a lot of other companies do, but that we customize it, that we tailor made it to your interests, desires, budget, wishes, but also knowing that what you like and what you don't like, so we can then best piecemeal the right type of experiences, accommodations, destinations that's going to be the right suited for you. By getting on that personal level, it builds trust, it builds credibility, It allows people to feel like this company truly cares, and not just about the money, but they truly care about the ultimate experience that they're being able to provide for their clients.
Yeah, 100%. And coming from like an advisor's perspective, and majority of your clients that are coming to you, like travelers, are actually coming through an advisor that's helping them through the process. People don't understand. Like I plan a lot for Southeast Asia. I've done a lot of trips through Japan, and I'm working with partners on the ground there. But then 8 a.m. in the morning, that's 10 p.m. their time, and it's like days. It takes days sometimes to get responses back, because then if you need a follow-up question before you can have the full picture. So having an office and having like home base in both the US and also having a local team is huge. I don't know if travelers really understand how precious that is. And also having everything through USD, US dollars, is really, really important. I have a colleague of mine who's dealing with a client who is paying an operator in euros. And when they first made the 50% deposit last year, the US dollar was super strong. And while US dollar in comparison to most other currencies is still relatively strong, it is not the same level as it was a year ago. And now they're paying the final deposit, and they're like, wait a minute, this is like 15-20% more than what I expected it to be. So having your total payments in US dollars is also very key and crucial, along with security and everything that you spoke about. I think is very, very good advice. Now, just as a whole, are there any like inside tips that you would share with somebody going on their first safari experience in Africa or in Kenya, like out of the box things to pack or things to think about ahead of time? What are some of those tips that you would say to somebody going for their first time that might be a little nervous?
Yeah, I would say I say this all the time, for the first time travelers, is be open-minded. Again, if you just go to Africa, let's just go to Kenya, and you kind of just have this direct linear way that how everything's going to be, sometimes then you set such high expectations. And I don't want to say that you're not going to succeed those expectations, but we all know things can arise. You could be in the middle of the bush and something could, you could get a flat tire, or you could be traveling around and you can get dirty. By being open-minded, and those are just two simple random examples, but by being open-minded, it allows you to kind of live what you are destined to do. And I like to say, like, especially when you go off the beaten path, okay? This is a common question I get. How do you push someone to really get off the beaten path? Well, we all know in life, the hardest things are the most rewarding things. When you can push yourself and you can get yourself out of your comfort zone, that reward is more than you ever even expected. When you can go off that beaten path a bit, and it doesn't have to be, again, staying with the host family. It doesn't even have to be in regards of like, going and immerse yourself into a tribe, but even just walking down the street and just saying hi to a local resident or something like that. It allows you to feel that connection, and it truly gives you that rewarding feeling of being able to have this new outlook on what that experience is. So, it's crazy because I do talk to a lot of agents that obviously have been selling Africa for years with other suppliers before they even came across us, and I even built a relationship with them. And they tell me that some of their clients, they just have these such high, like when you go to Europe, you're going to go to London, you're going to stay at this hotel, you're going to go to these museums, and you're going to go it's such a cookie cutter touristy type of thing. But Africa, so many things can arise. You might have a game plan for one day, and you literally might have the most exquisite, extraordinary thing happen where, you're on a game drive, you're driving to the next destination. Well, guess what? You might get to that next destination 2 hours late because why? In direction, when you're on your morning game drive about to leave the park, you see a pride of lions right there, where it's a lioness is under an acacia tree grooming her cubs, and you just want to sit there and you just want to admire for an hour because that's something that's so rewarding and touching. So again, going on your first trip to Kenya or anywhere in Africa, just be open-minded. Allow your senses to unveil. Allow yourself to be able to experience things that, again, you're not going to experience here in the States. Things that are going to touch you, that are going to impact you in so many ways. And that's why I'm a big firm believer that it doesn't have to be one way or the other, but at least when you go on this experience, try to push yourself in a way that gets out of your comfort zone for a little bit, because that reward that you're going to get coming home, and I'm not just talking about beautiful pictures and souvenirs for you to put on your wall. I'm talking about the outlook, the new perspectives, the new way you appreciate, honor, accept things. When you go, for example, this is a common thing our clients tell us. When they go into our tribes, and these people are so different than our own. They look different from us. They sound different. Their way of life is completely different. But you know what they make you feel like? They make you feel like you're one of them. They make you feel like you're this long lost brother and sister. And that to a lot of our clients completely transforms them. That you can be this complete outsider and that you can literally feel like they make you feel like you're one of them. So again, go into Kenya. There's so much to see, so much to experience, but go open-minded, because when you can go open-minded, you're going to experience and connect and discover and learn things in so many different ways that you would even expect it when you're flying over to Kenya. And those are the moments that really you cherish for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I got goosebumps as you were talking about that, because you just feel how powerful. And oftentimes when I ask guests on the podcast, where's the most transformative or most impactful place they've gone to, if they had been somewhere in Africa, 9 times out of 10, they're saying that it was their experience, and then Tanzania and Kenya and wherever else they go. I love it. You say, just pack an open mind. I had a friend recently try surfing for the first time. She did a surf lesson and she was like, oh, what do I need to bring for the surf lesson? I was like, a good attitude and a willingness to eat shit. Like, that's basically it. Right. And it's like, you can have your whole packing list, all your checklists ready to go. But if you don't have that open mind, you could be missing out on some of the most magical moments of that experience. So I really appreciate that. And just to kind of like wrap up here, you've had a lot of client experiences taking them around a country that obviously means so much to you. I'm sure you've witnessed some pretty powerful aha moments. You've mentioned a few already. Do you have any other story that you'd like to share of people who were deeply impacted by their time in Kenya with you guys?
I do. I actually have 2 that I would love to share. These are the 2 that really resonate me, that makes me very emotional here. So this was about 2 years ago. We had a lady that came from California, and she booked us through an agent, and she was a very introverted individual, very introverted. Her New Year's resolution was that she wanted to push herself out of her comfort zone. This is a lady that's never left the country before.
Wow.
She's only been to 5 other states before.
Wow.
So this is someone that's literally completely fresh, has never experienced outside the bubble of the United States. And she knew, again, her New Year's resolution was she needed to get out of her comfort zone. So she knew she needed to travel somewhere. And so she approached an agent that she just met, and she told the agent, had no idea the destination. Just said, I need to go on some sort of trip. And she referred it as a trip. Now, when you talk to her today, she refers it to as a journey. She approached the agent, told her about this. And the agent, fortunately, has known us, has booked with us multiple times, and said, you know what? If you truly want to push yourself, you need to go on a SkyIn journey. We jumped on a call. I did a presentation in front of the agent and the client. She booked literally on the call. She said, book me up. She ended up joining a small group excursion that we already had planned, and that group was willing to accept her in, because as a solo traveler, she knew she needed to go with other people, not do it by herself. She went on this journey. She went on a 2-week excursion across Kenya, immersing herself. She did stay at a homestay for the 4 nights in Nairobi. She went to both of our indigenous tribes. She went to the coast. She went on safari. Everything was magical. She got back to the States, and she gave me a call. And this is a person, 3 months later, did not hear from her. 3 months later, she gives us a call, and she asked to speak to me. I talked to her. She said, Skyler, can I just have 5 minutes of your time? I said, yeah, what's going on? How are you? Like, how has life been? What's going on? She said, Skyler, I really got to build a personal relationship with you. I've been on multiple calls with you. Obviously, when we do, 1 month prior to departure, we set up pre-travel video calls to make sure that we well-equipped all travelers before they even step foot on a plane. During her excursion, I was always checking in on her, because I knew this was something that was completely far out of her comfort zone. She got back and she said, Skyler, I got to tell you something. She said, I have lived at the same cul-de-sac for 6 years. She said, there's 5 other houses in my cul-de-sac that I have never met a single person before. She said, I'm that type of person that I go to work, I come home, I go to the grocery store, I come home, I don't interact. That's how introverted she is. And she said, your journey that you provided me completely transformed my thought process, how I appreciate and accept communities. She said, immediately when I got back, I went and introduced myself to all my neighbors. I'm very close to 2 of my neighbors now, and she's involved with multiple community projects.
Wow.
That was her aha moment.
Yeah.
That journey, sorry.
No, I'm about to cry too.
Because to me, I knew what Kenya has done to me. I knew how much it's impacted me, and how much when I first started is what I feel going to be the same that other people feel. I had no idea. Now, obviously, almost 7 years later, and hundreds of travelers coming our way, but for her to be so introverted, someone that has never left the country, someone that literally just just goes on her linear path and not willing to expand. And, again, to go on this journey and to come back, and we don't expect people to build a hut in front of their house and just live indigenously. But now she's involved in multiple community projects. She pushed herself to go introduce her to all her neighbors, and now is like best friends with 2 of them. That is the impact aha moment that she had. And it completely transformed her just because. And the cool thing about this is that when you go on one of our journeys, you're not there to work. You're not like on a missionary trip where you're like building a church for 5 days. Like, you're still going on, and this is the only time I'm going to refer this. You're still going on a vacation, right? You're still going and enjoying and being pampered and, having people, assist you. Like, you're not there working. You're there just to explore and go on an adventure. But that journey had more impact to her than if she were to go and do like a missionary type of work. Because again, so that's what's really cool about our journeys, is that you go on this vacation, but yet you get so much more out of it than just, again, bringing home beautiful pictures and souvenirs. Yeah. Another story I have is that this was probably about 2 years ago. There was a group of friends. They're all in like their late 30s. Okay. They came, and this specifically happened to be taking place in the Maasai. And I was not there. This is a story that they've shared with me. My director of operations, who was physically there, heard about it. And so they were at the Maasai, and you're there for about 6 hours. Like, you're there the entire day, completely private, intimate experience. And this group of friends, was 4 of them. One of them, he is this like big guy, huge beard, drives a Harley. He's kind of like that tough guy. He even told us when he first booked that he was not planning to go on this. This is not what he wanted to do. His girlfriend is the one that pushed him to be able to go with her, right? So he really had no like passion, or he was not as interested to go on this type of journey or this type of trip as the other people, especially his girlfriend in the group. But they kind of convinced him to go. He was in the Maasai. And when you go into our Maasai village, be prepared to have 2 children holding your hand the entire time. These children love visitors. They're not scared of visitors. They're always by your side the entire way. It's such an emotional encounter that you get to have. And he's with specifically these 2 young girls this entire time. It's crazy because the girls are like, it's just to see how much they've grown and all that. But as they were walking back to the van when the program was done, the excursion was over, he started bawling his eyes out. And our team started rushing. My director of operations started rushing to him. They're like, what's going on? Did you hurt yourself? What is happening? And he said, you see these 2 girls right here? I mean, these girls were literally like 1.5, not even, okay? Can't talk, barely walking. He said, they have been holding my hand this entire time. He said, as they were walking back to the van, the chief, with our translator, the chief does not speak the greatest English, but we have our own Maasai translators, told him, you see those 2 girls that have held your hand the entire time? You are the first white person they've ever seen in real life. First white person.
Wow.
This guy, his name is Jake, he literally said to our team, he's like, I'm an alien figure to these people, to these kids. I look nothing like them. I'm like, a lot of people think I'm intimidating because he's a big beard, he's a bigger guy. But these kids don't look at me and they're scared. They don't show any fear. They just want to be a part of me. They want to hold me. They look at me like I'm one of them. And he said right then and there that completely transformed his whole outlook on how you accept others. Because again, that these young kids can look up to this guy, and this guy is already usually intimidating to other people. Not even just kids, but other people, tattoos and everything. And they just don't look at him for that. They look at him like they're one of him. That completely just touched his heart. And that was such a aha moment for him, And so that's why when you can go to a destination like Kenya, you go with an open mind, you're willing to absorb and accept things that just come your way. You're willing to kind of push yourself out of your comfort zone. Look at the reward that you get out of it. You get these moments that stay with you forever, that impact your life, that bring you so much value in how you appreciate, accept others. And that to me is the journey of what Kenya has to offer. Because what makes Kenya so spectacular? Culture, it's wildlife, it's beaches, but most importantly, it's its people and its hospitality. That's what really truly transforms you. I read an article about 2 months ago that said first time people, and we all know that people say, oh, it's a once in a lifetime trip. But when you go to somewhere in Africa, you come back, you always say, no, it's never going to be a once in a lifetime. When people go to, and they're specifically talking about Kenya, when people go to Kenya, they go for the wildlife. When people go back to Kenya, they go back for the people. The people is what truly transforms you, especially when you are going to these villages that they really don't have what we have. I mean, in a sense of tangible things. They don't have phones, they don't have, cars, they don't have running water, they don't have big mansions, they don't have that. But what they do have is what a lot of people lack. They have love, support, community, and that's where we can learn from each other. And so the objective of SkyIn is to connect people all across the world to provide this enriching experience that connects people in ways that, again, to show that we're all very similar, but just in different ways. And those are some of the most enriching. I mean, I could tell you handfuls of stories that we hear from our clients, but those two specifically are what really has kept with me and I share all the time.
Wow. I think that's a beautiful way to close this episode, and just really hearing but feeling the passion that you have for this country and its landscapes and its people. I'm really excited to travel with you guys one day. You got me fired up. Thank you so much for sharing all that. We do wrap up our episodes with 3 rapid fire questions I haven't shared ahead of time, so we'll just kick it off with those. So number one is, what country, and I'm going to say, actually, I'm going to let you just say whatever you want. What country has made the biggest impact on you?
Well, that's a no-brainer. I mean, that's Kenya. I mean, I was
going to say you're not allowed to say Kenya.
But it truly is. I've been to 33 countries. You've probably been to more, I would assume. But I've been blessed to have been traveled across the world. And I'm that type of guy that I like to be in the local. I like to really, I'd rather stay in a family's home than stay at a Ritz-Carlton. But Kenya, I mean, it really does. Yeah. It's the people. It's just completely transformed me. So maybe you want to start with another question.
I was like, I'm going to say you can't say Kenya. And I was like, but that's not really fair because it's definitely Kenya. So number 2 is, what's your must-have travel item?
My must-have travel item, I can also say your passport, by all means. But I'm a guy that, making sure I do have a camera of some sort, because as much as I like to live in the moment, and I think is so important, I'm a guy that likes to reflect. I like to look back. And by being able to capture moments that, were taken 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and be able to reflect and look back on them, it really does kind of open your eyes. I mean, I'm that type of guy that when I have a bad day, I look at things that I'm appreciative of. I look at things that have really been rewarding to me in my life that I've been able to do that a lot of people dream of. I mean, I hate to say it, but most people, when I tell them that I own a safari company, I literally get to immerse people into tribes they grew up in and take people on wildlife safaris. And now we're soon about to tap into SkyIn Uganda and offer gorilla and chimpanzee trekking. Like, people are like, oh my gosh, that sounds like a wonderful type of career to have. By being able to have something, whether it's a phone, a small camera. I'm not that guy that has a big lens or anything like that. I'm just talking about have something that allows me to capture moments that I can relive is very rewarding to me and something I always will have when I travel.
Awesome. I love that. And then the last question is, what's your biggest life lesson that you've learned while traveling?
Again, probably ties into what we've already discussed, just being open-minded. If you just go into a destination and just say, okay, I'm just going to go from this place to this place and that's it, or just go to a location, even if you're going, for example, on an all-inclusive to Mexico, by being able to still have some tidbits of being able to go and immerse yourself in the local. And that's, some people just say it's by renting a taxi and just mingle with the taxi driver, learn about his culture, where he comes from. Those moments really are that you cherish for the rest of your life. And so any destination you go to, whether it's first world, second world, third world, poverty, high end, whatever that looks like, give yourself a little bit of time. Whether it's an hour, a day, a couple days, whatever that looks like, give yourself time to really immerse yourself into the culture. And that does not mean going into a village, going to a homestay, even just walking down the street, talk to some of the locals, get to know them, learn about who they are, their culture, their heritage, because that's what allows us to have that connection, allows us to grow ourselves by seeing other ways of life. And also just push yourself. And also, I think another big thing I like to highlight is solo travel, I think is important too. You learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about what you can provide to this world when you can go on an experience and travel by yourself. I mean, of course, you want to cherish these moments with spouses and friends and family, but learn to be on your own sometimes. And that doesn't mean that you have to go on a trip. That could mean I live in Denver, take an hour drive up the mountains and just go sit at a creek and just reflect, think about it. And so being able to have some of that solo time, especially when you can do it with doing really incredible experiences, really allows yourself to learn about who you are and what you can provide and give to this world.
Yeah, 100%. I think the ability to sit with oneself and not just sit, but also enjoy your own company, I think is a skill that not many people have anymore, particularly because we have phones in our pockets at any given time. So you can distract all the time. So I think
Yeah.
the gift of solo travel and the gift of SkyIn is that even if you're a solo traveler, you can potentially pop into one of your small group tours that you already have, or you guys offer, sometimes you offer group travel. So for those that are listening and want to learn more about Sky and want to learn more about how to potentially take a trip with you guys, what's the best way, or like, is there a website? What's the best way to connect?
For you guys to be able to connect with us is certainly reach out to Kelly. She can certainly help assist, but also you can reach out directly to us. You can visit our website. It's liveskyin.com. liveskyin.com, and please make sure that you refer and let us know that you came to us from Kelly. That certainly will help in the process. But we do also have social channels on Instagram, Facebook. It's at liveskyin.com. If you do just go to Google and you just type in SkyIn, SKYIN, you will see our website, our social channels, and all like that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing your story, your experience, obviously your passion, and I'm really excited for people to travel with you. Wow, I am surprised I made it through that episode without crying. Be honest, did you have to break out the tissues a few times too? But seriously, I just love when I get to speak with people who are clearly just so passionate about what they're doing, who they're supporting, and the mission driving it all. My biggest takeaway from this episode is how much of an impact we all can have as travelers by choosing the right accommodations, the right tour operators, the right travel advisors, the right transfers, with the, yes, you guessed it, the right intention. We can truly make such an impact on local communities, wildlife, and the environment, one trip at a time. So even if Kenya wasn't on your bucket list before this episode, I'd bet $1 million you're itching to visit now after listening to Skyler's story. Be sure to check out SkyIn's links in the show notes to learn more about how you can travel to Kenya with them, or you can reach out to me directly as well to have a chat. This episode truly was one for the books. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I'll see you next week. That's a wrap on today's episode. If you're feeling on fire and lit up to start planning the bucket list adventure you're craving, let's work together. I'm here to manage all of the hassle of planning, hand select your options specifically for you, and give you the inside scoop that no AI itinerary can give you. Click the link in the show notes to look through our pricing and packages. You're one click away from the adventure of a lifetime. This is your reminder to keep on exploring.